I will start us off with a short presentation on nuclear divestment, focusing more on the political side. Let's see. There are 3 items I want to present to you today. First, some general knowledge on divestment. Second, I'll show you an example of what divestment can look like. And thirdly, some self-advertisements, our own nuclear divestment guide. What is divestment? In our context, we are looking at divestment as part of sustainable investment, as opposing to divestments done regularly by companies to slim their portfolio. The process of divesting is started by forming or adopting an exclusion list, a so-called negative list in the guidelines of investments of special funds like reserve funds or pension funds. On this list, a series of criteria are named based on which the actor, the city, the state wants to decide its investments. That way, stocks of companies or even whole industries or bonds of states are prohibited from being bought. Additionally, all stocks or bonds being held must be sold, normally at a price where no or minimal losses are incurred. Who can divest? As my subtitle suggested, everyone can. Individuals with bank accounts, the banks themselves, endowments, and governments on every level, as many of them have some sort of special fund. Which brings me to some examples. As you can see in the left column, there are 4 countries that have divested their state wealth funds from nuclear weapons manufacturers, which are all non-nuclear powers. However, even in the nuclear powers or their NATO allies, there are quite a few examples of state and regional divestment. And these examples showcase how versatile the divestment instances can be if they are properly adopted to the specific circumstances where the divestment is taking place. To give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, let's have a look at the final product, the divestment decision of the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia. Even though these investment guidelines are already only 2 pages long, what is really of interest to us are only Articles 3 and 4. In Article 3, paragraph 1, the exclusion criteria are established as the minimum criteria or the minimum compliance standards, which are listed then in Article 4. Paragraph 2 narrows down the assessment criteria of the securities to environmental, social, and governance criteria, which are the 3 most commonly used categories. And finally, paragraph 3 defines to which financial products these standards apply to. So what did they actually divest from? Paragraph 1, A to D, define the exclusion criteria. The nuclear divestment is defined in subpoint B. It is also positively noteworthy that they added their own understanding of what controversial weapons are, instead of assuming that everyone has the same definition of what the colloquial term controversial weapons means. To the same purpose, similarly, in subpoint A, the UN Global Compact is referenced. Also, very interesting are the turnover limits in C and D. Those are the transactions exceeds 5% of the total turnover, which resemble some kind of compromise, these turnover limits. So a way to keep investments maybe even local ones, and others not. So hopefully this concrete example can clarify some of the implementation issues or implementation of divestment in total. I think this is pretty much straightforward. And well, finally, on nuclear divestment, what are the reasons for divesting? Reasons that are stated officially in divestment decisions, such as above, are twofold. One is environmental concern and seen as a way to contribute to stop climate change. And the other reason is the long-term security of sustainable investments, as they are seen to be less volatile and focus on long-term growth, which is what you especially want with pension funds. Another financial reason, or let's say advantage, specifically for nuclear divestment, is that there are less than 30 companies manufacturing them. Therefore, excluding these will only marginally affect your investment options. And a good source for more information on these is the Dutch NGO Don't Bank on the Bomb. But of course, there are many more reasons for divestment. To give you some examples, the threat to all life, not only humans, international treaties and opinions on nuclear disarmament and abolition, and divestment as a political statement to support the ratification of such treaties or to move your own governments away from relying on mutual assured destruction. But much of what I just presented is explained in greater detail in the nuclear divestment guide, which brings me to the last part of my presentation. So what is in the guide, for whom is it, and what do we hope to accomplish with it? So as you already can see, the guide consists of 3 parts. The first one is more or less what I talked about today, a general introduction to the topic, which sheds some critical light on divestment and especially nuclear divestment, and also to give you already some arguments at hand when you go to your counselor, representative, or maybe even account manager at your bank. The second part shares some experience of previous divestments to build upon, and the examples give you an idea of what your own divestment, maybe for example your university divestment, could look like. And finally, the guide cannot contain all the information about divestment, so in the last part we try to give you further sources and ways to proceed. As the broad approach to the topic suggests, we try to make this guide as accessible, understandable as possible, because the guide is written for practical use, actually, by civil society, campaigners, and legislators on all levels, and not only for fund managers. For the simple reason that divestment can be a straightforward measure, for example, or for everyone, to politically engage on big issues like climate change and nuclear weapons. So if my presentation hasn't scared you off yet, and you would like a draft of the guide, send us an email to info@nuclearweaponsmoney.org. We look forward to your comments, and I now look forward to the other presentations. Thank you.